Awesome. Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. So, today on this episode, we have our very first guest. I have had previous podcasts where I have done a lot of guests conversation, but this is our very first today, and we have Dr. Ray with us today. Dr. Ray is a best-selling author whose book was published by the team behind the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, with a doctorate in clinical psychology and over 28 years of experience as a life and relationship coach. Dr. Ray has shared stages with some of the most influential voices in personal development, including Marianne Williamson, Bruce Lipton, John Gray, and Eckhart Tolle. His expertise has been featured on the E! Channel, HBO, KCAL 9 Los Angeles, as well as Psychology Today, Men's Health, and Los Angeles Times. Welcome, Dr. Ray. How are you today?
I'm amazing. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So, very first question, how did you get started with your work?
Well, it first started by cutting through the bullshit. Cutting through the bullshit with myself and becoming accountable for, say, the problems that were in my life. And so that that includes getting a couple DUIs, having toxic relationships, recognizing that no matter how much I pushed forward, I would self-sabotage and things wouldn't work out. And then in time, you know, I had to take personal responsibility of and ask the question, like, why is this happening to me? Because for
Mm,
other people, it seems like they're moving forward. Maybe they don't share their obstacles that they go through. However, I just recognize that it just seems harder for me. And that led to me seeing a therapist. It led to working with many other healers, to
mhm.
even, I had IBS and I don't have it anymore. And in the book, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay,
Love that
the
book.
what they say is that it has to do with just hanging on to stuff, hanging on to
Mm,
stuff. And that addressed, say, my control issues. But underneath my control issues was a lack of trust, which many of us experience that in our life, whether it's in regards to starting a business or becoming serious in a relationship, wondering whether or not we should invest our money over here and so forth. We typically go outward. Can I trust this person? Can I trust this idea? Uh, and yet it's always an inner job. It's always an inner job. So even if a person moves forward to better his or her life, if you have that lack of trust, that's like having one foot in a door and one foot out. And the universe is so unconditional, you'll attract exactly that. It will be not exactly what you want. You will not be probably that satisfied. You might have a lot of challenges because it's a representation of your indecisiveness and lack of trust within.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's no wonder that I was actually journaling on the idea of trust this morning. So it falls in line perfectly with where I've been today, anyways. So that's great. So when it comes to the work that you do with your clients, you do a lot of relationship work as well. And I actually started initially, I called myself a relationship coach because I believe everything is relational. Um, but when it comes to that, what would you say? I know trust, of course, is the biggest thing here. But what would you say the biggest kind of reason that people don't step into those relationships? Do you see any kind of consistency through your clients, the same kind of stories?
Yes, and same as yourself, I see everything relational, no matter what. And so if you really were to get to, say, the hidden belief, meaning
Mm,
the hidden belief that's behind not leaning into something and discovering that there's a lack of trust within ourselves, there's a possible chance also some of the thoughts that might come up are these. Can I trust I can walk away from this person? Um, can I trust that if this is a mistake, I can move forward. Uh, do I trust the process of life? Do I trust there's even a God? We start discovering that there's like these beliefs that we have, and that's what stops us. And so therefore, we don't lean into conflict. But it's usually an outward projection, such as I don't want to get in a relationship with this man, uh, is the projection outward. If we were to turn it inward, it might be this. I have an issue with boundaries.
Mm.
I've had an issue with losing myself and my own autonomy. Okay. I wrote a book called All It Takes Is One that uh, talks about this. The subtitle is drop. I'm looking over here because I forgot even the name of it. Drop your one big, drop your one big hidden belief and master your life. And
Mm.
it's all based around that to where I invite readers to, because it's like a workbook also,
Yeah.
where, as an example, if we start talking even about trauma, a person might say that I was molested or I had abusive parents, and that is why I'm afraid to be in a relationship. Then we might go a little bit deeper and we might recognize, oh, uh, that I became a very untrusting person. And if they're working with a traditional psychologist, that's they'll just stay there. That's it. I have attachment issues, I have trust issues, but that doesn't feel resolved, and that's not what the client wants. So we have to go a little bit deeper in what is it, if you're not to be able to trust yourself, what would you be afraid of? I'll make the wrong decision. Um, I'll become a people pleaser. I'll caregive for this man. I will, all those things. And so when it becomes transparent, you can change it. When it becomes transparent, you can change any behavior. And so when people say, I can't do this, I'll hear that as an excuse still, no matter what. I can't do this. I'll hear that, and they'll try to argue for their limitations. But always we arrive to that hidden belief that's really stopping them. And then what might surface is this. Oh my God, I got to take personal responsibility. Oh my God, I might lose some friends. Oh my God, I might have to actually uh, work on myself.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And I love that. I love the title of the book for starters, because I absolutely believe that it's one simple shift. You are one simple shift away from a very eye-opening, very different life. And like you, I hear the excuses immediately, right out of the gate. You're like, but is it true? And so love this conversation already. So you did mention the trauma, and you have your degree in clinical psychology. So you mentioned that with a regular psychologist, people get stuck at a certain part where they just relate to that. So how does your work take them a little bit deeper there?
Yes, well, in traditional therapy, it's about the process in honoring a client's feelings, which is utterly important. It's a first step. And I spell it out also, by the way, if I keep referencing my book, I'm not trying to push it out there. It's
Oh
just,
no, you're good.
you know,
It's a great place to answer all those questions
okay,
and
okay.
totally
And
check it out. Don't feel bad for that.
one of the reasons why the book was written was because honestly, it's a lead magnet, meaning I'll be honest, I sold 5,000 copies, but I'm still negative in promotions. So yeah. So, um, but it's a tool when clients decide of whether or not they want to work with me. I'm like, well, you don't have to like pay for my coaching. Just you can read the book right now on Kindle for free, you know? But
Right.
there's a section I talk about the typical process of healing. And first it's this. Number one, it's that you finally recognize I have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
God,
Yep.
after, I've been married 5 times, maybe it is me. You know what I mean? So
Yep. The
I
common
moved,
denominator. Yeah.
I moved 5 different times, and everywhere I go, I somehow discover the assholes. Maybe I'm the asshole. You know what I mean? So it's just that you're no longer in denial. Then number two, it's you start talking to your friends about it. Hey, do you think I'm an asshole?
Yeah.
Or you just start talking about do you see this in me? To you just maybe you go to but you start having a conversation. Then the third step typically is you go to a professional, maybe. It's where you might see a coach or a therapist, you might go to a retreat, you might do plant medicine, whatever your permission slip is to access your consciousness. But that's the next step. You've realized, oh my God, my friends are biased.
Yeah.
Or how about this? All my friends are assholes just like me. I
Yeah.
can't go to them. Okay. All right. So you start working with a professional. And with that professional or expert, usually we go to the place of past experiences, your childhood stuff, to feelings you push down. That's the fourth step, and that's important. But that's where most people get stuck, and they'll pull out their journal. This is why I have this problem. Okay?
Yeah.
But no, you are what happened is that you finally recognize the influence. You
Mhm.
recognize how you integrated this negative experience. You recognize how you blamed yourself for that bad experience. The fifth step is what do you want to do now anyway? The fifth step is recognizing, well, that's what I knew back then. What can I do now? And that's what's
Mhm.
spelled out in my book. That's how I work. So with every client, it's going through that discovery. When they finally reach out to me, they're on step three.
Yeah. 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 Awareness is absolutely the biggest thing. And it's so funny because I'll be in conversation and one of my clients will say something and I will bring the smallest thing to their attention and they go, wait a second, have I been doing that the whole time? Like, yeah, you have. Maybe. And then they'll talk to their spouses and their friends and they're like, do I do this all the time? And they're like, actually you do, but we never they're like, why wouldn't you tell me that I did this thing all the time? And it's, some people don't feel like they have permission to call other people out on their stuff. Um, but I'm sure you have friends like I do who will call me and say, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Why is this happening? And I'm like, well, I can tell you, but do you want to hear my advice or do you want to just vent about the thing that's happening? And just being very crystal clear because not everybody wants to hear. Not everybody wants to cut through the BS. Some people just want to stay stuck in their problems.
Yes, I ask, like, say, maybe more friends when they're sharing because they do reach out to me uh, when they maybe are having challenges. Do you want me just to listen?
Hmm.
Do you want me to offer any advice? And I ask that, because the thing is that that agreement has to be reached.
Right,
Bottom
right,
line, even with
right.
clients who are paying for my services, some that are hypersensitive, uh, I will still ask. I go, how comfortable are you with feedback? Because in my process, I'm really direct. In fact, if you read like a bunch of reviews about me on Yelp, that's the main thing that's shared
Mm,
is how I just go right for it. I
yeah,
just go, and so we might talk about their relationship with feedback because if they can't handle feedback and they start getting defensive in coaching or anything I'm offering, it's just not going to work. And
yeah,
so I go over that. In fact, that's why I do the free discovery call also with all new prospective clients. And I ask that, how comfortable are you with feedback? Because I will not coddle you. I will
yeah.
not coddle you. And so, and I might use the example if I was your personal trainer and and no matter, and I have worked with hundreds of clients and that they stuck with this strategy, which meant also looking at their diet and
Mm,
being consistent, but you're showing up, you're actually getting fatter. I know it's not my method. I know it's not this process. And so I would want that person to be accountable. Like, what are you
yeah,
really doing? And then they might admit, oh, I've been sneaking in Big Macs and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, are you really ready to do this? And
yeah,
so, you know, we clients have to be accountable. People have to be accountable and ready to receive feedback in order for there to be any type of change. Bottom line.
absolutely, absolutely. And it reminds me of, just simple conversations that I have even with my children, right? Like Do you want to know the honest truth about this conversation? Especially with my older two who are in high school. My son learned very quickly that you can't go around gossiping because you'll accidentally tell the wrong person and it will come back and kick you in the ass. And
Hmm.
he said, Mom, I said something to somebody that an adult had said to me initially, and it's now been found out. What do I do? And I said, well, you have to take ownership for it, honey. But can you just talk to them? And I said, no, I'm not going to talk to them. I said, this is an important relationship for you. You have to have an adult conversation and apologize that you did the wrong and move forward. And to just watch him kind of shrink back and irk about the whole conversation and test it out with me. He ended up did having the conversation, but it's so interesting to see kind of that in real time, especially with clients, where they're like, you can see their body language shift when you tell them
Hmm.
something that lands different. And I have the same thing in my consultation calls. Listen, I'm going to be tough on you. There are some calls you're going to get off and you're going to want to say F you, and you're never going to want to speak to me again. I
Hmm.
said, but the work that we do is going to resonate and repeat for a couple of weeks until we speak again, and you're going to benefit from it in the long run. So go ahead.
By the way, awesome parenting.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes. And what's interesting is that those listening to this really listen to Stephanie because she's guiding her son to lean into conflict and discomfort. Where else are they going to develop that skill set?
Right, right.
You know, or don't do that and they'll just pay for a therapist when they're in their 30s or 40s.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I do joke with people. My husband hates when I say this, but I'll say, we're going to screw up our kids. We're either going to love them too much or not enough. Either way, they're going to need to speak to somebody regularly about us. He doesn't love it, but it kind of takes the pressure off of parenting because yes, it is a big job, but I could totally screw it up with my kid thinking I'm doing the greatest thing. And if I sit there and overanalyze it,
Mhm.
I'm going to be curled up in the fetal position and never leave.
Mhm.
Uh, and so that is, that's also something I discuss, right? Like we're going to get it wrong
Mhm.
regularly. And you have to be okay to make mistakes in order to get better at it.
Mhm.
But there's the fear of, well, I have to do it right the first time, otherwise it's not worth it. You don't ever get it right the first time. And the problems that your clients and my clients come to us with, it's probably not the first time they've seen it, right? You just mentioned this, where am I the asshole or is everybody else the asshole, right? Like they keep showing up for us to have an opportunity to actually look at it. It's not there to just be a painful reminder.
Yeah. You talked about the synchronicity of trust this morning, correct?
Hmm.
Well, there's one with myself because the conversation you just shared about your son, I had something similarly happen with my son today before I dropped him off at school. And my son's 10 and a half, and he's quite precocious. And I raised him that way. And he's been with me full time since he was 4. So I don't really have much help from the co-partner. Uh,
Hmm.
so he's been kind of drilled with all of this information at a very young age. And I've been absolutely transparent with him about everything. And my girlfriend forwarded a text message from a friend, and it was her sharing her concerns about a boy my son was hanging out with. And it felt and like gossip. And it
Mm.
was a parent saying that, I saw, Max, that's my son, hanging out with this boy so and so, and I just want to let you know, like, my son and I saw him get arrested for arrested or something like that, and we know him from jujitsu, and he's gotten in trouble for stuff. I wouldn't want I wouldn't want my son to hang out with this kid, and
Mm.
did not feel good when I saw this text message because I don't like gossip, and
Yeah.
it's a parent who doesn't know everything about this kid. She's somewhat saying that like she's kind of singling him out, and so I sat down with Max and I let him read the text message. I
Hmm.
said, "What do you want to do with this?" He says, I go, "Do you want to say anything to your friend?" He said, "I don't know." I said, "But you have information about him right now." And I said, I go, "This is circulating out there, and I got the information." And I said, "I like this kid. I like this kid's character. And I know who to trust and not to trust. I was raised by a Marine, and there's two boys that he said he didn't trust. Both those boys ended up in jail. They ended, I mean, they, and there was
Mm.
boys where who had stolen some things, who've gotten in trouble, whatever the case was. My dad liked that boy's character, and sure enough, those boys turned into great men, great fathers. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It was just a moment in their life. And so I shared with my son, I said, "Well, there's been things shared about you before." And I go, "What if you went to new school and someone avoided you because they had this information?" And he said, "Well, I probably want to know." I said, "Yeah, you don't have to care about what they say, but wouldn't you want to participate?" I said, "Would you want to allow your friend to participate in this? Would you want to share this in a way where he can participate and state his case of what happened, maybe how he changed, what he learned from it?" But the thing is, this information came to our family, so it's up to you. I know it's an adult conversation. I said, but it's a situation where you can lean into that. And I said, when I see him, I will ask him also. And I want to let him know the potential I see in him. If he has gotten in trouble before, because I have as well. I did a lot of stupid shit when I was younger. Yeah, yeah. But I
Yeah.
also live in a town where here's a few things. The woman that shared that is a helicopter mom. Okay?
Yep. Yep.
All right. All right. And so there's that. And then two, I live in precious Ashland, Oregon, where they shelter their kids a lot here. It's a bubble. Like it's primarily white people and um, yeah, the kid's Hispanic. So I don't know why I got a little triggered by that a little bit, but like it's like they're so afraid of anything
Mm.
here that the kids are, I would say, kind of not developed in like skill sets like survival to
Yeah.
just not independent. Like they're almost 3 to 4 years behind socially and emotionally. A lot
Mm.
of them. I'm not talking, just this is more feedback, what I see. And so when I see this kid, I see great character. He's expressive. Like I could see how he could be judged for something. And
Yeah.
so I just went on a tangent about that. I don't know why. I guess I had to
No.
get that off my chest.
No, it was perfect. It was perfect. Yes. Like I said, I enjoy the conversation side of my podcast. Certainly not it's great. Wherever it goes, it needs to go. But yeah, no, I love having those conversations and I try to have them, especially with my children, because I want them one, and this was one thing I've al always said to them from the very beginning was if you hear something at school you don't know what it means. You come to me, I will tell you exactly what it means, and we will discuss whether or not this thing gets repeated, right? Because when
Mhm,
they were younger, they would come home with all these different words,
mhm.
and you're like, What did you hear at school today?" Right? But I
Yeah.
wanted them to get used to, hey, mom, this is new. I haven't experienced this. How do I handle it? So, those are conversations that I have all the time, especially with 4 kids. You have all these different energies
Mhm.
constantly competing for attention, and it's how do you manage it while also remaining put together as a parent because each one of your kids is a reflection of you as well.
Yes.
So it's like right, it's like, okay, how do I heal this part of me that's annoying me from that kid? And how do I focus on that part of me at the same time, right? So parenting is just this beautiful mess.
Mhm.
Yeah, to just dive into all of that right
You know,
there.
I think our generation is a little bit different than the baby boomers in a sense of, as an example, I worked with Dr. Daniel Siegel, who wrote several children's books, but the main one was Parenting from the Inside Out.
Mm,
It's all about looking at your child within yourself, you know?
yeah.
but there's also this stigma or this idea, and it was true probably in prior generations where it seemed like most of the psychologists and psychiatrists had the most fucked up kids, right? Right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 And I think it's because there was still a lack of transparency. I know better. I know better. Like this is why it is the way it is. And the difference here, I think what we're sharing here is that we allow ourselves to collaborate with our children. We
Yeah.
allow everything to be transparent. And that's what's different. It's really cool. It's an up leveling of, of us showing up as, say, professionals, maybe.
Absolutely. And I have so many stories that just came to mind, but it's it's definitely different the way that I parent from not necessarily all of my friends, but I definitely see it different the way that my kids just interact on their own.
Mhm,
And when I get feedback from that, it's beautiful.
mhm,
But another thing that I swear has been the biggest blessing, when I was first doing all of this inner work, my older two kids were still quite young. And I don't remember where I got it from. It may have been a conversation with God or something. But I remember realizing that everything that my kids said to me, I didn't have to take personal.
yes.
And that was so eye-opening because there were days where they were like, "I hate you. Your food sucks." Right? And it was like, well, I can either take that really personal and go cry,
Hmm.
or I can be grateful that they feel safe enough to share that with me
Hmm.
and maybe redirect how they communicate it next time, right? Um, and so that's also, the beautiful step there as well. But when it comes to you, do you just have the one son?
Yes.
Okay. And so you don't necessarily see all of that interaction between siblings, which I think is so funny. But when he does interact with his friends, you did mention that, there tends to be an emotional stunt there in that area. Um, are there ways that you've been able to pour into your community to help kind of that emotional growth, whether it's for the adult or the children?
I have attempted to, and I don't want to, this will be a whole nother podcast show about this. But let's just say this, it is so extreme, we're actually moving in June.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I've been here for only 3 years, and it's a trip. I learned that it's its own little bubble. And so I'm not resisting against like what is here. And
Yeah.
so it's just not aligned with us at all. But yeah, I wish I could. In fact, what I realized is that that energy that came from that, and this is part of like I guess being a little bit self-aware. First off, I realized, wow, I'm really talking about this. And then it must be something that's really important.
Yeah.
Um, is that I've had like my shadow has been uh, accepting where people are, to
Mhm.
recognizing that, and this has been shared by a lot of educators here who've become my friends, and that is, they said there's a lot of traumatized parents here. This is why they move here, because it's safe. They have an issue with a masculine, big time. Like there's not like it's like almost, it seems like Ashton's been castrated by any masculinity. The women
Interesting.
are way stronger. My girlfriend is a coach as well, and she admits the same thing. She sees it as well. So it's like I can't change that collective narrative, nor do I feel interested in doing that. So I'm just accepting it as it is, and we're just moving in a different direction. And we know it's not us, meaning that because we have flown to different areas and we have a different experience completely.
Right.
Even 15 miles down the street. I mean, 15 miles down the highway,
Yeah.
it's a different experience, but we just don't want to live there. So.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. And I love that you brought up that shadow. Debbie Ford does that beautifully in her book, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. And I hear my inner voice regularly
Mhm,
say, "Can you love this part of you?"
mhm,
And it's like, I don't want to, right? Like, I don't want to love that part of me that's obnoxious and all these other things that irritate me, right? But then on the flip side, you're like, can it serve you on some level? And so I do love that you guys have realized, hey, this isn't the space for us. This is not, we're not called to
Mhm.
change all of this.
Mhm.
Because we're actually, I was just having a conversation the other day about, where my kids are at school. We love the school that they're at.
Mhm.
Is it the best place for the high schoolers? We don't know. We're in that conversation right now, because of just the size and the growth and all the other things involved. But it's so interesting when you take that ownership and say,
Mhm.
you know what? It actually isn't me, but I need to go somewhere else that is me. Um, and I don't think people give themselves permission to do that.
Yes, and even beginning of this conversation, I talked about how most of the time it's ourselves.
Mhm.
It's like our limited beliefs. However, there's a process that we can all go through where we do the inner work. And as an example, I've worked with couples where uh, they have asked me, like, when do we know enough is enough?
Mm.
And tell them the best scenario if you both were to end this relationship would be this, where you both can fully, unconditionally love and accept each other. And from that space, maybe recognize that, but I don't see a romantic future.
Mm.
I see a special kinship to even, I recognize that this was a karmic relationship and I've become a new person and I haven't been accepting that. And therefore, what's been really toxic is I have been clinging to this because I've been trying to make something work that already, say, healed me or up leveled me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and so that's the same thing with any situation, like even like business owners or like people who are trying to start a business, that a lot of those things fail. They just don't,
Mhm.
they don't work out. But what I've learned as an entrepreneur, because even though I'm a life and relationship coach, um, I've been pretty good at marketing and I like to make money. I'll be upfront. And
Yep.
so, I've done pretty well for myself and I know how to make things work. However, I also know that things are not supposed to always work the way that we want, that we have to let go of the outcome. And it's more who we become in the process is
Mhm.
everything. It's what we do in a challenge that's more important than a challenge itself. And with that type of mindset, we're reflective. It's no differently than this. I know you have high hopes for your children. So when you share, your intentions are always to uplevel their lives, to help them feel better and be confident. And when they push back, even by these good intentions, you don't take it personally. How's that any different than putting a post out there that doesn't work, or creating a container hoping clients will show up and it doesn't work, or creating a product and it doesn't work? That there's always adjustments that we can make within ourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think that it's utterly important for people to, when they're trying to achieve something, just remember whatever attachment they have, the outcome, if they remain in their heart, they might actually witness and experience so much more.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that remaining in their heart because I know that part of my journey was opening my heart up, right? Because I can be very masculine and I can be very driven and pay no attention to the feelings and any of that stuff. And I know exactly where it comes from. Um, but being able to connect with somebody on that heart level is very different, and tuning into that also results in very different kind of path and journey there as well. And I know that you and I could probably chat all day about this, but we are at about 45 minutes. We're just at about 40 now. And so I don't want people to start to get their eyes glazed over or anything like that. We want to keep them here. So what would you say is, your biggest, and you've already mentioned it, but just like the biggest, I guess, takeaway that people should have from our episode today?
Well, if the emphasis is about cutting through the bullshit and having a positive mindset, it's recognizing that let's say the bullshit or limited beliefs are within. We have a lot of excuses. And by asking those questions, like say Byron Katie
Yeah.
asks, such as, is this true? To who do I become when I have these thoughts? To who would I be if I didn't have these thoughts? That we can change anything, bottom line. And so I see every life opportunity as feedback to where we are right now consciously. Everything. Everything is an extension of ourselves. And so, sure, something might not be working the way that you expected. And I'm not saying deny the emotions of anger or sadness and whatever. But I guarantee if you stay in the positive mindset, or at least keep your heart open, you'll recognize that there's aspects of what had happened and didn't work out that is an extension of yourself to still heal. Bottom line.
Mm,
And this doesn't mean that, oh, well, does this mean that I'm just going to have one relationship after another relationship and just go, oh, great, I'm happy and positive?
yeah.
Or another business endeavor where it's like, it didn't work out again and like I'm losing money. It's not that. The point is this, it's that if you really are taking the lessons in from what is happening, you'll start seeing things show up in a better way, in an easier way. Bottom line,
Yeah.
bottom line. It's
Yeah.
just how it works. It's how my life has worked. And whenever I see stagnation in my life, I know that I'm hanging on to something. There's something I'm blocking.
Mm. Yes, absolutely. The reflective part of life, most people don't actually pay attention to. They're just kind of going through the motions
Mhm.
for sure. But you did mention something, and I just want to touch on it real quick. You had talked about how everything you can pull apart everything and just kind of reflect on all of the things. And when it comes to our personal growth, how do we balance being reflective and continuing to make progress? Because you and I both know that you could spend days and hours and weeks thinking about all the things that did or didn't work and what it means. So, how do you find the balance between moving through the thing as well as finding the meaning in the thing?
Yes, I there's a lot of people in the healing space that are more interested in processing over progressing.
Hmm.
So you need both. You need the feminine and the masculine.
Yeah.
And the balance would be this. Are you having fun yet?
I love
How you feeling? That's the indicator, bottom line. And so because when you're processing and if you're kind of wallowing uh,
Mm,
and you're not feeling good, do not expect the next actions you take to maybe achieve the results you want. Get to a place where you feel maybe at least neutral and then move into the action or change that needs to happen. Bottom line. And that's how I do it. That's what I learned from one of my mentors. It's that he said that, you're a multidimensional human being. That means it's like you're not supposed to be out there in the clouds all the time, etheric. It's not where you're supposed to be like self-absorbed in your emotions. You are here on earth in a specific time, and physical reality is part of that dimension. So it is for you to maybe download from spirit, open your heart, and then walk.
yeah.
Chop wood, carry water, be human, enjoy your life.
Yeah. I love that you said that. Are you having fun yet? I asked people that. That was a very triggering post on social media that got removed from a group one day, because I said, if your business isn't fun, why are you doing it?
Mhm.
And there were so many heated discussions that the owner of the group was like, I had to remove it. And it's crazy that something like joy and fun just triggers the crap out of people.
Well, the issue is accountability. So I
Mhm.
hear it a different way, such as, wow, people had to ask that question and get to their deep truth to
Mm,
even the owner of the group. She, I'm not judging, but maybe they lacked a little bit of their own accountability to actually manage the emotions of the triggered group.
yeah.
That's how I hear it and feel it.
Yeah.
No judgment, but we need to be accountable. It's okay.
Yes. Yeah. Radical responsibility. It was just
Yes.
somebody was just talking to me about the extreme ownership. There was a Navy SEAL who wrote that book called Extreme Ownership. And it's interesting that people just I told one mentor one time, it would be really easy if I could just blame everybody else for my problems.
Yeah.
And he
Your
got a
life
good
would
kick
still
out of that.
suck though. Your
Right,
life would
right.
still
You're right.
suck though, but
It
at
would.
least you think it's the cause is outside of yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Which is, I was like, it would be much easier if I could just blame everybody for all my issues at this point. Well, thank you, Dr. Ray,
Thank
for
you.
your time today. I will include all of your links in the show notes so that people can reach out to you as well. Where is the best place for them to find you?
My website, which is raydoktor.com. So it's raydoktor.com. And there's free giveaways. There's a link to my book and a link to a group that we're doing. And yeah, pretty easy to get a hold of. And I have a lot of stuff on YouTube as well.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you again for your time today. And this episode, I'm excited for it to go up. It will go up on YouTube and on the podcast as well. So I will make sure to send all that information to you too.
Thank you.
And final last words, I always say this at the end of my episode, is be you because the world needs more of you.
Amen.